Welcome to the League of Women Voters of Chicago, Zooming with the Alderman interview series. The League was founded right here in Chicago 102 years ago now, and is active in all 50 states and the US Virgin Islands. We are a wide network. The League neither supports nor opposes political candidates. We influence public policy through information, voter services, education, and advocacy. Our interviews with the alderpersons are examples of League work. Hi, my name is Elona Vaishnis, and today our guest is Alderman of the 47th Ward, Matthew Martin. Welcome, Alder Martin. Thank you for making time for this interview. This session is being recorded, and we provided the questions to Alder Martin in advance of this interview. So let's start by taking a look at the current 50 wards of Chicago. All right. And now let us zoom into Ward 47. Alder Martin, acquaint us with the ward you are working for. What are the main boundaries of your ward? And would you describe whether your ward is residential, commercial, or industrial?
Yeah, thanks so much for allowing me to join you today. So our ward is roughly bounded by Clark or Ashland on the east, the Chicago River on the west, either Belmont or Cornelia, which is just a little bit south of Addison on the south. And then the north, you can see it jogs up a little bit, starting at Leland to the west, all the way up to Foster to the north. And for folks who aren't super familiar with those particular streets, the neighborhoods are primarily Lincoln Square, Ravenswood, and North Center. We also have parts of Andersonville, Uptown, and West Lakeview. When I think about what the makeup of the ward itself, I would say it's primarily residential with some very notable commercial corridors. Lincoln Square and North Center. So you're talking about Lincoln Avenue, Irving Park, parts of Clark Street are very dynamic. And then we do have most of the Ravenswood industrial corridor. So some vestiges of industrial, although that itself is in the process of transitioning in some very interesting ways.
How would you describe the neighborhoods in your ward?
So I would say they can be a little bit on the quieter side, a good number of younger families, older individuals who are either empty nesters or don't have children, but still plenty of folks who don't fall into those categories, and folks who really love access to our vibrant commercial corridors. We have some terrific performance venues, including the Old Town School of Folk Music, Black Ensemble Theater, the list goes on. The Brown Line bisects our ward diagonally. So you have a lot of folks who live in the area because of proximity to local transit that can take them downtown quite easily.
Huh. What are the main concerns of the people in your ward?
Mm-hmm. I would say they're the concerns that a lot of folks throughout Chicago share right now, which is one, making sure that we're turning the page on the ongoing pandemic as quickly as possible, so as to support our businesses, make sure that our schools continue to be as vibrant as possible. Unfortunately, there are lots of concerns around public safety, as is the case with, I think, every single ward and every single community across our city, given what's been happening over the last year and a half. But a real hope that this year will be better than the last, and that just as we're bouncing back from COVID, that we'll be bouncing back from a number of concerns around public safety.
What motivated you to run for alderperson in 2019?
I'd say two big things. One is my wife and I absolutely love living in the ward. We live on the border between Ravenswood and Lincoln Square. And I helped start up a neighborhood association, the Heart of Lincoln Square, and really loved the opportunity that I had to engage with my predecessor, Amaya Pawar's office, and putting that group together, but really engaging with them on issues both big and small. It was through that work and a number of other neighborhood initiatives that I really came to appreciate just how important a dynamic alderperson's office can be when it comes to engaging and strengthening communities. And in addition to that community-facing work, I had worked for several years at the Illinois Attorney General's office, focused on a number of issues, perhaps most notably public safety reform, police reform, and through that work came to appreciate the ways in which our various public safety institutions didn't get the sort of oversight and accountability that legislative bodies like city councils are well positioned to provide. So when it came to the murder of Laquan McDonald and issues surrounding that, and knowing that that was part of a legacy of police misconduct and the need for police reform that had not been adequately embraced by prior government leaders in the city, that I and my colleagues on city council and our new mayor would hopefully be able to chart a new course as it concerned not just police reform and public safety, but a whole host of issues, including expanding affordable housing as well as tackling the climate crisis head on.
Is there, so you really came knowing a lot, came into the job knowing a lot about the job already. Is there something that you enjoy especially about the job or that you find especially difficult?
Mhm. I really appreciate when we're able to solve people's problems or help solve people's problems. I think that sort of immediate gratification is helpful for residents to know that they can and should have faith in the opportunity of government to affect their lives in ways both big and small on a daily basis, whether it can be ensuring that a tree is trimmed in a timely fashion, or if a tree is taken down, that it can be planted quickly, that we're replacing garbage cans quickly. And that sort of work sustains you, because when it comes to the frustrations that I have in office, a lot of the challenges that we're facing are not new, especially when you put COVID aside. And so I think in our neck of the woods, whether it's public safety, certainly the lack of affordable housing, I think that while we've been able as an office to work to ensure that we are expanding affordable housing options, it's not going as quickly as I would like. So trying to find that balance between continuing to be frustrated, knowing that that means that there are opportunities to see progress happen more quickly and in a more fulsome way than you would like, but not getting so frustrated that you just feel like throwing in the towel.
Alderpersons constitute the Chicago City Council and also serve on committees. Now, you serve on the Ethics and Government Oversight Committee. In fact, you are the vice chair of this committee. What kind of matters come before your committee?
So it's a host of matters, and I think that it's quieted down in recent months. But initially, it was a lot of issues around secondary employment for city council members, curtailing that. One of the more notable recent issues we took up involved the selection process for our city's new inspector general, a very, very important position, given their ability to audit and investigate every single department in city government, including city council itself. And also the opportunity to hold a series of subject matter hearings in response to reports and audits that the Inspector General's office puts out. Because at the end of the day, we're a city of nearly 3 million people. We have lots of issues, but also lots of opportunities. Government plays or can play a prominent role in a lot of that. And we need to have a dynamic Inspector General's office to really hold our feet to the fire, hold us accountable, while also helping ensure that we know what the path forward is to bringing about the sort of systemic change that we all want to see.
Are there any changes in the operations of the city councils that you would like to see and you would support?
I would really like to see us take our committees more seriously when it comes to providing oversight and legislating. Right now, and the Inspector General's office actually came out with a report involving this last year. You have situations where the committees and the staff specifically that work on committees, they don't spend the majority or all of their time on committee business. They oftentimes work on business involving the wards that are represented by the committee chairs. And as a result, we don't always see the sort of policymaking and oversight coming out of those committees as you would expect and do see in places like Springfield with the state, and then certainly Washington, D.C. with Congress. So I'm hopeful that in the coming years, especially this next term, regardless of whether I'm in office, that our committees and committee staff can do more policymaking work, more oversight work, which of course will help have a positive impact on the sorts of services that the city provides.
Right, interesting. Now, you had mentioned the question of security, and Chicago is doing its best to reduce gun violence. What actions by the city government have been effective, in your opinion, and or could be more effective, or will be effective in the future?
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly, there are a number of things that we've done decently well, but certainly in the aggregate, not enough to help address various public safety challenges. Things that I've been heartened to see involve and include the ways in which we are expanding our support for violence prevention organizations. There are groups like Ready Chicago, Chicago Cred, Communities Partnering for Peace. They take this layered approach whereby they identify individuals who are at high risk of being involved in gun crime, offer them access to free therapy, as well as paid job training with a dedicated job at the end of the program if folks are able to complete it, and then also are keeping lines of communication open with street gangs so that if tensions do arise, that they're working to de-escalate those tensions. That sort of multifaceted approach has been taken by those three organizations and others that I mentioned. Both the University of Chicago and Northwestern have done multi-year analyses and have concluded that in addition to terrific anecdotes, that statistically they're having a positive impact. What we're working to do right now as city government is to really bring those programs to scale so that every community that needs a program like that, and almost every single community across our city does, has access to them. So I think that's one that we know is a real opportunity. Where I think that there's opportunities for growth involve how we all engage with our various public safety stakeholders when problems arise. If there's a carjacking in your community, if there's a shooting in your community, maybe a series of robberies, to be able to, I think, work with the state's attorney's office, the police department, these violence prevention organizations and others. And I'm hopeful that a recently passed ordinance empowering communities for public safety, ECPS, which envisions a number of changes, including the creation of a civilian oversight board for our public safety institutions, as well as district councils that fall within each of our police districts, that they can be effective conveners of those various public safety stakeholders so that we can see the sorts of dialogue and community partnerships that we're going to need in the coming months and years to put the worst of public safety issues behind us.
There seems to be, so there is a lot of really thought going into this. Are there any specific programs, very specific programs that come to mind?
Yeah, so each of those violence prevention organizations, they have programming on a daily basis. So I think that one, that's very important. A second one is the city's summer youth employment program, which has been operating for a number of years and is very much similar to what you see in other peer cities, including New York and Philadelphia. And we know that that has a tremendous impact on reducing the number of arrests that participants might be subjected to. And so we've worked with the Department of Family and Support Services to expand the offerings this coming summer in part relying on some of the federal COVID dollars that we will be receiving over the next several years. So that's a second program that I think is going to be hugely impactful so long as we're continuing to bring that up to scale. And then finally, we know one of the biggest short-term impediments to seeing the sort of public safety improvements that we want is getting higher clearance rates with regard to homicides as well as gun-related crimes. And so there continues to be a lot of focus on our Bureau of Detectives within the police department to make sure that they're adequately resourced, including with personnel, so that we can see those rates go up, which helps demonstrate to everybody involved that when incidents do arise, crimes are committed, especially the most concerning ones, that they're going to be investigated in a quick and fulsome way, and that there's going to be accountability as a result.
Thank you. League members have observed that city council committees and then the city council regularly pass agenda items that the public has had no chance to review until days after the meeting. This is due to the provision in Rule 41 that allows the mayor and city departments direct introduction of items. The result is that the public does not have the chance to have input before the vote is taken. Would you support requiring that all items that are up for a vote would be made available to the public with an assigned item number 2 business days prior to the meeting at which they will be voted on?
I do support that. I think the opportunity to provide information to the public in a transparent fashion so they not only know what's being considered, but can voice any support or concerns that may have, absolutely critical. I think we also want to make sure that maybe there could be some exceptions built in if there's a truly emergent issue that arises that requires immediate attention. We can figure that stuff out, but that's going to be along the margins. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're not cutting deals in the back room when it comes to passing really important pieces of legislation, that we're shining a spotlight on what we're considering and providing the public the opportunity to work with us in crafting the sorts of legislation that reflect our needs and our values.
During the February election for mayor and for alderman, a candidate must receive at least 50% plus one vote to be declared the winner. If there is no winner, the 2 top getters have a runoff election in April. Now, some states are choosing to do away with the runoff election by switching to an instant runoff called ranked choice voting, which uses the votes already cast. What is your opinion on ranked choice voting? Would you support that for Chicago?
I'm a big supporter of ranked choice voting. I think that that's absolutely the right way to go. Peer cities like New York have adopted it, and I think there are a number of benefits to it. One is, of course, we're saving folks money because we can avoid a costly and oftentimes unnecessary runoff in many situations. But also, it gives folks the opportunity to really identify individuals who maybe they, in their opinion, might not have the best chance of winning, but they think would do the best job. And so if they can rank them first, but then say, hey, if that person isn't going to get through for any number of reasons, well, here are some other preferences I have. So it really gives folks a series of options, a series of opportunities to be able to have their voice heard when it comes to who they think would be the best elected representatives. Certainly, there's an amount of education that needs to be involved. It's not a necessarily intuitive process for every single member of the public. But look, after a while, after we have that education, we have conversations, I think that folks will, on balance, recognize that there's tremendous benefits associated with it and hopefully support it going forward.
Interesting. Okay. What would you really like to get done this term, which ends in 2023 for you this term, or at least get started on?
So I'm really proud of a lot of the work we've already done to date when it comes to issues around violence prevention. I've mentioned several of them earlier in our conversation, ways in which we've expanded affordable housing options, including legalizing the creation of basement units and coach houses, which previously had been outlawed, as well as strengthening the city's affordable requirements ordinance to up the percentage of units in new developments that need to be priced affordably. That said, I think one huge outstanding issue that I'm hoping we can tackle and tackle successfully in the coming months is reestablishing the city's Department of the Environment. We know that we are in the midst of a climate crisis that is getting worse, not better. And when it comes to issues like managing stormwater runoff, planting more trees, addressing the growing urban heat island effect, decarbonizing our economy, we're not going to be able to do those things successfully, certainly not timely, without a really strong and dynamic Department of the Environment. It was disbanded when former Mayor Rahm Emanuel came into office. So it's something that we did have for a number of years. It's really important that we bring that back as soon as possible.
That is nice. So you have a lot on your plate, don't you?
We do. But that's part of what makes the job interesting and worth doing.
That's wonderful. Alderman Martin, thank you for being with us today. And you are giving many Chicagoans and many others an opportunity to become acquainted with the 47th Ward. We'll be sending you a link to the video of this interview, and everybody who was registered today for today's program and is not a league member will receive an email with a link to this interview and an invitation to sign up for our notices of future programs. And everyone else will be able to keep looking at you many times on the Chicago League website, and where they also can get acquainted with other alderpersons, because we're trying to interview all current 50 alderpersons. So, and we invite our viewers to join the Chicago League. It is for all civic-minded women and men. Men have been league members since 1974. We're open to Democrats, Republicans, and the unaffiliated, and everybody who really believes that working on strengthening democracy is worth their time. The next premiere will be with Carlos Ramirez Rosa of the 35th Ward on Thursday, March 10 at 6 p.m. We hope you will join us often as we learn about Chicago and its elected representatives, officials, one ward at a time. And I thank you.
My pleasure.